Yes, A+ students. All right, good morning, everyone, and everyone online. Um, Talking from Remax Ace today on a beautiful sunny Tuesday morning. We're going to talk about loading our listings on Realm MLS, and how to load a good listing and pitfalls and mistakes we should avoid while we're loading it online. Have any of you tried loading a listing on your own in Realm yet? No? Okay. So you'll find when you go to actually do it, you don't have your permission turned on, because there's lots of mistakes you can make that you can get fined for or in big trouble for when you're loading your listing. So we encourage you that if you want the capability to do that, to come in and sit down with me one-on-one, and we can talk about loading your listing and walk through it once. And then after you're comfortable doing that, like your permission will be turned on. So not everybody will go into the Realm ad edit screen and have the same screen I'm going to have today. But there are training practices you can do in there. So you can go and you can try to practice on them a little bit. So why do we need to load a good listing? Because first impressions count nowadays. The first place everybody goes is online to go view a listing. It's a no-brainer, right? So we definitely want to make sure that the impression is very good, your listing looks very polished, the information is accurate, that you have an enticing description and all that kind of stuff. Because a sloppy listing at the end of the day means that you can miss showings because you're not pulling people in from online, right? You're not enticing the public to ask their realtor, hey, can we go see that property? You're not creating that excitement online for the property. So it's really important that we're doing that. So we're going to go right into it today. And I'm just going to go to our MLS Realm. Share my screen here. Okay. So when you log in, you're in the dashboard here. And you're going to find, oh, hold on, let me just let a lot of people in here. I know. Admit all. There you go. Thank you. Okay. So we're going to go into the dashboard. So where are you going to find where we load listings? We load them in Realm now. It used to be Stratus, but now that it's Realm, it's so user friendly, really easy to find where you're missing information or have a mistake. Because Stratus, I don't know if you guys remember loading in Stratus at all. It was just one big long page you had to scroll through. It was very hard to find where you were missing information. Now we're loading in Realm. Okay. Let me just minimize this a little bit. And where you find add edit is in the waffle here at the top, right? So you're going to click on that. Okay. And you're going to come into Realm add edit. Listing add edit there. Okay. Now I'm just going to go and I'm going to find a listing that is currently up. We can just sort of take the information off of there. So let's search for something maybe in Scarborough. Let's go to EO9 maybe. Good morning. How are you? So EO9 Woburn. Okay. All right. So we'll just take this one, say on 35 Benfire. Just grab a random listing. Okay. So we have this property that we want to list. We're going to go to our ad bit. Okay. And we have 35 Benfire. Okay. So luckily there's been a listing before, or our system has some information on it. So it's great because it's going to grab the information and grab the location and stuff for us already. Grab some autofill stuff for us, which is really great. Sometimes you won't and you'll have to manually enter that, but right now we're going to work with this today. And then we're going to search by name. So if you guys are loading a listing for yourselves 99% of the time. So I'm just going to grab it and say it's Christine. And then what kind of transaction type? Is it for sale, for lease, or for sublease? So we're just going to do a sale. And it's a residential freehold. So we're going to do residential freehold tax property. And we're just going to do a quick double check of the address down here and make sure it pulled the correct one. So we want the Benshire Drive in Toronto, EO9 Woburn. Yeah, okay, that's correct. That's what we're looking for. Very often we'll have similar addresses. You'll find you might pull up Main Street and it's pulling up the one in Markham instead of the one, off of Danforth. So just make sure that you're grabbing the correct address, right? And we'll come down. Oops, lots of people entering today. You don't have to at this point, no. Then you can go create. Okay. And it brings you to this first screen. Now you're going to say, hi, good morning. Now you're going to start entering your information. So most of the stuff is a no-brainer. You're just going to enter it as you go along. So we have here, anything with a red asterisk is a mandatory field. Okay, so it won't let you bypass that. So we got here, it automatically pulled the assessment roll number, which is great. Because before we used to have to manually enter that or copy paste it from Geo Warehouse. It automatically pulled the PIN number. We have Toronto 09 Woburn, right? 35 Benfire Drive. And now it's asking us for the postal code. Okay. So very first thing you should always do when you're loading a listing or when you're preparing an offer, I tell you guys over and over again, you should never be doing any paperwork in Realm or SkySlope or anything, any of that kind of stuff without pulling your Geo Warehouse. Okay. So I'm just going to go to this listing and Geo Warehouse is available at the bottom here. And I can click it there. I'm ready. And it's going to automatically pull the information. Okay. But because most of the time when we're loading a listing, we're not working with an actual live listing. I'll show you how you guys can manually pull it. I'm going to X that out. We're going to go to the top of Realm. Sorry, let me just open another tab for Realm. Okay. And we're going to go to that waffle at the top again. And we're going to go down to the green button here that says Geo Warehouse. And now we can manually pull that listing. We can go in and we can type in the loads. 35 Benfire Drive. Okay. And you open the property report and you scroll down and you have the same thing as if I had pushed it off the listing. Okay. So now we're going to say to ourselves, what information do we need? So the first thing was the postal code. Now, the postal code isn't usually listed at the top here of Geo Warehouse. The other thing I like to do is pull the list, the Google Maps for this, because we're going to have to talk about the frontage of what the house is fronting on as well. I usually have my Geo Warehouse tab open and my Google tab open just to measure whenever I'm doing anything. Like I say, this is not only for loading a listing, this is also when you are preparing an offer. You should always have both tabs open, in my opinion. Okay. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to say 35 Benfire in Scarborough. Okay. Now I think I'm set to load this listing. So the first thing we thought that we needed was the postal code. M1H1M3. M1H1M3. Okay. So we talked about the fronting on. I have my Google tab open already. So the first thing I find that a lot of agents make a mistake for, so be especially cautious when you're preparing an offer, don't go off the listing, is what is this house fronting on? Okay. Confusing for a lot of people out there. So we have this house on Benfire, okay? And does anybody want to guess what it's fronting on? Right? So a lot of people get confused because the house is facing west. If you walk out the front door of this property, you're facing west. You're looking at the west, right? I don't know if you guys can see you can see my mouse there. Okay, so we know that maps are, the top is always north, east, south going down, and west, left, okay? So this is east. The house is fronting on the east side of the street. Okay. So it's always the opposite way that the house is facing. So if I walk out my front door and it's west, then I know I'm on the east side of the street. Okay. Right? I know it's confusing. And once it clicks, you get it from then on in. But I find a lot of agents mislist it. So be very careful. Well, don't pull off the listing. I always go and Google Maps it on my own when I'm preparing an offer. And I'd say it's usually kind of 50-50 that the listing agent is incorrect. Okay. So I'm going to come back here now. I'm going to say that the house is fronting on the side of the street. Okay. Now,
Someone make a mistake, like, for example, what is the big issue or?
so I mean, really, buyers should always do their research, but I don't know, for different reasons, like a lot of people follow like a feng shui thing and they say, oh, is this, you see the property in the evening and they go, is this facing east? And you go, yeah, it is because it's on the west side of the road, or whatever the case may be. They could complain about that and say, oh, I was expecting the sunrise to here every morning, or whatever the case may be. You're supposed to be putting, not only that, sometimes there's some confusion, like, um, say you have a house on the corner and it's actually on Main Street here. Its address is on Main Street, but the front of it is fronting on the west side of another named street, right? So you want to say where the frontage is of the house as well for those two reasons, right? Okay, so then we have our legal description. We're going to go back to Geo Warehouse and we're going to copy and paste our legal description. Okay, so we have the legal description here. And luckily it's a fairly short one, so it should fit. If your legal description doesn't fit, now they've upped it to 500 characters, so most of them fit. But if it doesn't, you can always put it later on in the brokerage remarks. But for now, you should be good. Okay. And the lot front and the lot depth. So because we pulled it off of an old listing, it's actually a live one we pulled it off of. It's going to read off of old listings that agents have entered. So we're going to make sure that lot front and lot depth are correct as well. So we go back to our Geo Warehouse. Okay. We scroll down. Sorry. And it's 50 by 125. So that's fine. Now, if you came in here and it was 50.07 and 125.08, I'd change it, because if you ever get fact checked on your listing and somebody comes back to, do a RICO complaint or TREB complaint on you, if you are in the habit of always pulling your Geo Warehouse up and always pulling your Google Maps up, you can prove that, look, I changed it to say 50.07 and 125.08 because that's what Geo Warehouse says, right? So you always know that if you keep this a habit, that you won't run into much trouble. You can always show you did your due diligence for the listing, right? And then the lot size code, we're just going to put feet because it's feet we're working in right now. Okay. And now let's see here what else is mandatory. Main cross streets and directions. So this direction is a new thing that they've added. I don't know if anybody's loading listings on a regular basis. They didn't used to have directions in there. They just had cross streets. So I'm going to do the cross streets first. So let's just look at Benshire here. Now we're just going to zoom out. And it's really up to you guys what you want to put. See, this is kind of dead center between Bellamy and McCowan. Now, because I think Benshire, the Ben Jungle, has a really good name in Scarborough, sells higher, nice properties. I think I'm going to say that this is at McCowan. It's pretty dead center, but just from a listing standpoint, to be a savvy agent for our realtor or for our selling clients, I think that I'm going to put this is at McCowan. I'm just trying to pull up the street name of the other one, but it could be Lawrence. Yeah. And Lawrence Avenue East versus Bellamy. Okay. For this listing. Now you can't really embellish a street just because you feel it would be nicer for the listing. That isn't truly do it, but this one is pretty dead center. So I'm okay with putting McCowan Road and Lawrence Avenue East. Okay. Now for the directions, what they want you to do is they want you to give some sort of direction on how to get to this house. So I'm going to go back where the listing was and scroll in, and I'm going to see here, I'm going to say that it is north of Lawrence and east of McCowan. So we talked about that map direction. Always, you guys remember never eat shredded wheat? Have you ever heard of that? So if you look at a map and you're always confused, you talk about never eat shredded wheat, going around clockwise. So north, east, south, and west. I should show the people online with my mouse. So up is north, east, south, and west. Never eat shredded wheat. So I'm going to say that this is east of McCowan and north of Lawrence. Okay. Now, this one's pretty straightforward. You know, if you give a major intersection, sometimes they're more of a minor intersection. Like say I said McCowan and Lawrence, but then maybe I'm saying, east of McCowan, north off Painted Post, right? You might become a little more in depth with the directions, but for this part, it's pretty straightforward. So east of McCowan, north, oops, north of Lawrence Avenue, east. Okay. And I'm just going to do a quick little save. Okay. Now you see what happens the first time I save. It's going to bring up all of these error notices, which is just an amazing thing with Realm. Because like I say before, when you get to load it, you used to say you're missing fields and you have to scroll back through the whole page listing. But right now they've got it displayed in really nice tabs, really, really user-friendly for loading listings now. You can very easily see what you're missing. We're on the location tab now. Let's just see what I'm missing here. So is it a waterfront property? No. Great. As soon as I do it in real time, it clears it out. So I don't have to keep on saving and going back and checking my listing. All right. So the next tab we're going to work on is the amounts. So let's say we're listing this property at 1.299. Okay. Be very careful. I've seen a lot of listings and we've put them in our chats too, where somebody lists the price. Maybe I put an extra zero in. Maybe I didn't put enough zeros. As soon as you make this listing live though, if you make that mistake, your listing will no longer say new. It will say price change, which will affect your listing terribly. You know what I mean? Because people will say, oh, this has been on the market. It's been price changed. It's going to reflect on the public and agents like that, right? So even if it's only been listed for a half hour and you do a price change, it's going to say PC and not say new listing. So very, very careful with the price. Otherwise, you have to find a whole termination and relist the property, right? Put it back up for the mistake that you're making. Careful with the information. HST is going to be included in because we're just doing a regular resale property, right? Tax year. So this is 3627 because normally it's not filled in, but I grabbed it from the current live listing. But if you don't have it, it's obviously going to light up red. You have to get the actual information. So don't tell your client can't say to you, oh, my taxes are like, they're about $2,400 a year. No, give me your tax bill. I want to see the exact amount to the penny. Okay. You're responsible for accurate information. So let's say 3627. Now this person put 3627 with no cents. So I'm imagining they didn't get maybe the exact, or maybe it is exactly 3627, but I'm going to say 38 cents. Okay. And when you click over to tax, you see it only went to 2024 and 2025. Okay. That's because we're almost partways, like halfway through the year. They're still allowing us to use 2024 because some people might not have received their new tax information, their interim, or definitely not their final for 2025. So what you're going to do is you're going to get whatever tax bill from your clients. You're going to say to them, do you have your 2024 or 2025 and give it to me? But they won't allow you to use anything older than that because it's wrong information. It's not accurate, up to date. We're going to say this is 2024's information. And now the contract commencement. So very often when I do the listing paperwork with you guys, I talk about the contract commencement and the date signed. They don't have to match, okay? So if you're sitting down with your clients and you're taking a listing and they're saying, you know what, give me a week. I need a week. I want to paint the garage and get the garden looking nice before we do the showings. So we're going to start showing as of next Saturday, okay? So your contract commencement for your listing is when your listing is live. Because as soon as a listing hits live, the TREB rules are that it has to be a showable property. Okay. So, there are a million realtors we could tell on that do not do this properly. I have a rental right now that we're waiting to show, and they've just blocked off showings for the next month because, they're doing the windows right now. We're not sure when we're going to show it. You're not allowed to do that on MLS. Okay. Because a lot of agents were misusing this and they're just put it up, block up all the showings, collect all the people calling in from the public on their own, and don't let any other agents show it so they can try and double end. Okay. So you can get in big trouble and fined for this. So you are not making this contract commencement today if your client is not letting you show until Saturday. If you knowingly are blocking off the showings, right? So I signed my listing paperwork today, but my clients aren't showing till Saturday. But I come home and I'm working on the listing today. So I can go and I can put showing starts on 5/10. That's what my listing paperwork says. It doesn't start till this Saturday. And then the expiry date. You see, when you bring up the expiry date, it automatically bumps us to July. We have some of those clients, like if we're chasing a FSBO for sale by owner, a lot of times they'll say, you know what, here, just take the listing for a week. And then, what happens if it doesn't happen, then, you don't have the listing anymore. You have to always explain to those people that it's fine, but the minimum time we're allowed to take a listing for is these 60 days. Okay. So you have to sign with me for 60 days. And after a week or two, if you wish to cancel, you can cancel. Right. So again, minimum listing time, 60 days. So, and usually we take a little bit more. So I normally just go ahead a couple months and we'll say that I just picked September 30th. Okay. This is the duration that my listing is live, showable, and on MLS to the public. Okay. Then we have possession date and possession remarks. Now they're both mandatory fields with the asterisks, okay? But they both don't have to be filled out. So it's one or the other. Once you fill out one, you don't have to fill out the other. So the difference between possession date and possession remarks are, does your client have a specific date in mind that they have to close? So your seller has purchased a condo and they cannot move in there until July 1st. If they close this house, they'll have nowhere to live in the meantime. So they definitely need July 1st. So you can go in here and put the date of July 1st so that anybody buying knows that you need that date, right? As soon as you do that, possession remark does, it doesn't show up as a mandatory field anymore. The other option is, if you don't have a specific date in mind, you can go to the possession remarks and you can put things like TBD, so to be determined, right? To be announced, whatever the case may be. If you have some other remark, then a specific date to put for that. Okay, so we'll just put TBD. And then what is the possession type? So is it immediate? Is it a vacant property? It can be possessed right away. Is it flexible? Are they looking for a range? Okay, so to be determined, but they're looking for something between 60 and 90 days. Or you know what, they're kind of flexible, but they definitely need to move within 30. So, give me something within that range, but there's not a very specific date, right? And then holdover days. Holdover days is a confusing topic for a lot of realtors that I talk to. Do we understand what the holdover days is? Yeah?
You go to find a property, but then, it expires, but
Mhm.
they buy it from the owner.
Yeah.
After it's expired.
Yeah.
Show they train your period.
Exactly. So we have this contract commencement date, May 10th, and it goes till September 30th. Okay. So somebody comes to view the property on September 28th and they, I don't know, happen to chat with the owner. And then they come back a couple days later after it expired and the seller says to them, hey, you know what? Yeah, like my listing expired. Let's do a private deal now. I'll give it to you for less because I don't have to pay that agent anymore. So you've just marketed this property for 4 months and lost all your time. So what the real estate board did is they put a holdover period in our contracts to stop this, because a lot of people were doing that. They were saying, hey, my listing expires in a week, come back. We don't have to pay the commission, right? So the holdover days here, you can put 90, 120. Usually around that time is acceptable. And you can say that after this listing expires, you can't go back 90 days after that and buy directly from the seller. You still have to use me because I'm the one who introduced you to the property through my listing or through my BRA, my buyer registry agreement with you, right? So one or the other, okay? And then seller name. So seller name, I'm sitting down with John Smith. John Smith says, yeah, no problem. He signs the paperwork and I come to load it and I'm like, shoot, now I pulled my Geo Warehouse and I realized that more than John Smith's on this title. I have to go back and get those people's signatures, right? So you have to have a signature from many people is on the title. So this is a good example. Normally we have 2, in this case we have 3. So Bruce and Davidson and Janine all have to sign this contract, okay? And they all have to be listed on the listing. I'll just put Bruce Davidson's name for this exercise, but just so you know, you always have to check your warehouse and make sure that each and every one person on the title has signed, okay? They can't say, oh, no, it's fine if my wife, she's fine, no. Because you never know at the end, what you're going to do is you're going to go through a whole listing. You're going to sell the house. It's going to get to the lawyer and the wife's going to go, I didn't agree to any of that. I'm not signing it. Like, because you don't know necessarily what's happening. There could be two partners fighting and one's trying to sell the house so that the other could be, a divorce happening. You never know. So every person on title has to the property and they have to sign for it. Okay, so now I've X'd out everything on that amount stage. I can go back through other fields, but I just want to get through the mandatory ones today and we can go back. Now we're going to go to the exterior. Okay. So detached property link. So how do we know what a link is? Very often our client will say, oh no, it's a detached home. I've written a few complaint responses to RICO, this brokerage and my previous, for people who mislisted a linked property. Okay. So where do we know whether it's a linked property? Linked properties are really hard. They look like detached properties from the outside. You don't know unless you check your Geo warehouse. I actually have an agent who called me recently. I think it was this week, last week. No, it'll be early this week, probably last week. Who said my client is insisting because all the other MLS listings before said detached, and it's going to ruin my sale, and I do not want you to put link. And I said, well, you have the choice. You can take that and possibly get hugely fined for it, or you can insist and say, no, I have to put it, or I'm not going to take this listing, right? Because what's the point of doing the sale incorrectly if you're going to turn around and get fined for it? You lose all your commission anyways, right? So you're going to go to your Geo warehouse and you're going to check and see what the type of property is. Okay. So if you scroll down here, this is where it's going to say. So here it says single family detached. Okay. So I know that it's a detached home and it's not a linked property. Okay. This is also where you can find out if it's a condo or not. Sometimes it's hard to tell if it's a condo, right? Or whatever the case may be. What is it, a detached home? Is it considered a townhouse? Whatever the case may be, this is where you're going to find the description. And you can come back here now. I can say no with confidence that it's not a linked property. Okay. The style. Let's look at it. I didn't take a good look at it. There you go. It's bungalow. So I'm just going to say it's bungalow. Okay. It might be a back split. It might be a bungalow, raised bungalow. I'm just going to say bungalow for the purpose of this, but make sure you're going and checking all your information, right? The exterior is going to be brick. Let's see if there's any things on this. So sometimes you have the style of home in Scarborough where it's brick, two-story made, the top half is siding. Maybe it's got some stonework on the front of it. So you have the option of changing it here. You can pick a couple. So I could say brick, right? And let's just say I'm going to pick stone. So maybe it's brick with some stone accents on the front of it. A lot of them are refacing Scarborough homes with stone in the front and they're solid brick in the back. So whatever the case may be for the property you're working with. Now the foundation detail. This is a new one, and I have a lot of agents calling me, how do I know? Well, you can get used to seeing it for yourself, but you always don't want to trust your information. If you're doing a pre-list inspection, it's a no-brainer. It's really easy because you can ask the home inspector. You can ask the client, right, what type of foundation that they have. You can go in and take pictures if you have a good home inspector that you work with. If you're unsure, take pictures and send it to your home inspector and say, what kind of foundation do you think this is? So in the basement, if you look at a wall, take a picture of that or some of the exterior at the bottom. Whatever you can to show that you did your due diligence for this, to kind of see. But most of the time we're in Scarborough, we're dealing with poured foundations, right? A lot of times when you start moving, like, East York, I can think, start moving up north, you get concrete block, wood foundations, stuff like that. For the most part, we're dealing with poured, but that is a no-brainer. Like, always make sure you check and see. Okay. The roof is another thing. Now, most of the time we're dealing with asphalt, right? We have asphalt shingles. Most of the time we're dealing with that. But again, don't just keep on picking it. You never know. My next door neighbor has a beautiful metal roof, right? Beautiful. So maybe it's a metal roof. Maybe they've got Marley roofing where it's, kind of that, let's see where it is here. I say that now. And what do they put as tile, I guess? Tile. We talk about the Marley roofing where it's that clay tile. Maybe they've got some flat parts of the roof where it's tar, you know. but most of the time asphalt shingle is what we're dealing with. But make sure you know, again, we'll check with your client, ask them what kind of roof do you have if you're unsure. Okay. And garage, does it have a garage or not? So in this point, we're gonna put yes, because here we come to another place where a lot of agents make a mistake. So the garage type, first of all, attached and built in. What's the difference between attached and built in? Right? So we'll take a look at this. This doesn't have a garage on it. It's not a good example. Attached is where it would be attached to the house, literally attached to the house, right? It's not detached or anything. But a lot of people say, well, built-in is attached too, right? There are a lot of people there who don't like a built-in garage because they have some thoughts about emissions or it being colder or what the concern is. But built-in means that it's actually built in the house some way. So there's usually a room over the garage, right? Some kind of the house is built on or above around the garage. Okay, it's built into the home. A carport. Carport is not the enclosed space, just a roof hanging over your car, right? Detached would be, it's not attached to the house. Maybe it's in the backyard. Maybe it's, kind of askew. Maybe it's off to the side. Maybe in a bigger property, it's not even really close to the building. And then none or other. If you have some other kind of thing you want to put in there. So just make sure you use that properly because I see a lot of people put attached when it is built in. And you will find a lot of people come to the house and they won't like it. A lot of people, I don't know, a lot of people don't like that built-in garage. Some people do, but a lot of people don't. So, good morning.
Somehow that also has the detached at the back of the house.
Yeah.
And it has also a carport.
Yeah.
So we have to put both of them or?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
How you can? Okay.
So I don't think you can pick. You can only pick one for garage type. You should itemize both because that's going to really show, right? You don't want to put carport and people are like, oh, but I have nowhere to store my my lawnmower and all this stuff, right? It's definitely something you want to showcase, right? Honestly, what I would do is I feel like the detached should have a little more value depending on whether you can drive into it or not because it's an enclosed space. A lot of people don't even use their garage for parking their car. They just want to use them for like workshops or a place to a lot of people chill in the garage, whatever the case may be. So I would showcase detached in the listing and then maybe put something in the remarks saying with an additional carport for extra parking, for extra covered parking or something like that. But they do only let you choose one. Yeah. And then the garage spaces, we're going to pretend this is a double garage. We're putting 2. Okay. And then the parking here, we have a lot of different options, right? Whether it's available, boulevard, you have to park at the boulevard, circular driveway, front yard parking. A lot of times we're dealing with private double, or shared, right? Which they don't have that here. Covered front yard. Did they take out the shared? Anyway, shared is a valid parking because a lot of times you're sharing a driveway with your neighbor and people want to know that. But anyways, we'll put that it's a private double here. And then we put that there's 2 parking spaces in the driveway. So now we come to total parking spaces. Super important for your listing. You're not pushing your listing online if you're not adding the parking spaces correctly. So a lot of people get confused with this and they're like, I don't know. It's 2 in the garage and 2 in the driveway. So we end up with 4 total parking spots. Very important for people who have like families. So for instance, I have teenagers driving with their cars, plus I have my car, plus, I'm definitely going to be more attracted to a listing that says 4 parking spaces versus someone who mislisted and put 2, right? So you hurt your seller a lot if you don't properly count out the spaces like that. Okay. And water is required. So most of the time we're dealing with municipal water. Okay. But don't be fooled. Again, if you're working a lot in the Cliff Crest area where back in my youth, they're just still converting from being cottages back in the day. Or in the Guild is another place I can think about it. There's houses that are still on well and septic, and even if they're off the well, they're on septic, right? Okay, so don't always think it's not municipal water just because we're working in Toronto. And then pool, whether it's in ground, on ground, whatever. I'm just going to put none for this one. Okay, and so here you go. The sewers, like I was saying, sewers very well might be septic if you're working one of those areas. Know your area. East York is another one that might have an older home still on septic. So, but most of the time we're dealing with municipal sewers. Everybody's been hooked up municipal water and sewers. And then the special designation, again, most of the time we're dealing with unknown, but just look into it. If it's an older home and you suspect it might be heritage or on leased land or whatever the case may be, look into the history of your property. But 99.9% of the time we're dealing with unknown in the city here, of Toronto at least. And what are we missing here? Survey type. So survey type, is it available? Is it the boundary only? Or is there no survey? Is it unknown? Is it up to date? What's the case, right? Well, they might say, I don't know, I have an old survey from when I bought 25 years ago. Okay, at least you have it. It's available. It's available for the purchaser. Okay. Now I'm just going to go, like I say, I always run out of time. I'm going to go on the tabs that only are still saying that I'm missing information. So the interior. Okay. What were we doing? Rooms. Here's another spot where we make a lot of mistakes. How many rooms are in a house? How do we count total number of rooms? Okay. So we have living room, dining room, kitchen. Okay. 3 bedrooms upstairs. We're at 6. We got 1 bedroom in the basement with a rec room and a kitchen. Okay. So how many bedroom? What am I at? It gives me the plus though, right? So I counted how many upstairs. I would say 6 plus 3. Okay. Where did I get to 6? Living room, dining room, kitchen, 3 bedrooms. Anything above grade. That gives me my 6. Plus is always below grade or not where the other ones are. So if you have a bedroom upstairs and you have sort of a back split situation going on, and maybe there's one on a level going towards the basement or on the main floor, you could put 3 plus 1 bedroom, right? It's where usually below grade we're talking though. Okay, yeah. That's okay.
How when it's working on living room, dining.
Yeah. So you're still gonna consider those rooms because there's still those spaces for those purpose, right? So even though your kitchen is open to your living and dining and your living then is all one big space, you still have the space for that purpose. They just want to know that it's there, right? So for instance, if this had like a family room, then I could add this and make this say 7, right? Because I'm gonna itemize them after. Everything I put here I have to itemize after. Okay, in my room descriptions. So yeah, definitely. And then when you're doing the measurements, it gets tricky. You generally would measure the whole room and say combined with, or you can try if there's a really defining, like, this wall from the kitchen really you can see where the living room and the dining room divide. You could say separate spaces as long as you're accurate with your measurement and split them up. Okay.
Except washrooms.
Yeah, everything except washrooms. Yeah. So we're going to go for number of bedrooms. So we said there was 3 bedrooms up, 1 bedroom down, and there's 1 kitchen up and 1 kitchen down, right? That's how we use the system and the total number of rooms. Now here's where we itemize the washrooms. So 1 times piece on the main floor. What's the 2-piece washroom? Piece washroom is toilet and sink, powder room, right? And we have 1 4-piece on the upper floor. Okay, so 4-piece would be toilet, sink, shower, tub, right? Then we have 1 3-piece on the lower level in that basement apartment. Well, what's the difference between a 4-piece and a 3-piece? Toilet, sink, and shower. Okay, so anytime you're adding pieces, like say it's jacuzzi now you have an additional feature in your washroom, it becomes a 5-piece, right? All those. So you're going to keep on counting like that. Okay. Interior features. This is also a new section they've put. And I've been like struggling to figure out what I can use. And I'm trying to get used to this new section. It's not new, but it's definitely like at least 6 months old. So what is in here? So they want us to put in some kind of features. So accessory apartment, air exchanger, is there a bar fridge, brick and beam on the ceiling, is there central vac? I find myself choosing a lot carpet free. Carpet free is like something that a lot of people like. They don't want to deal with the broadloom. And on-demand water heater, tankless water heater is another one I'm using a lot. But anything else in here is more or less for you to like look through and pick and see if you can showcase something that your property has that you're listing. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
count as two or one? Because I've seen some of it without any fault.
Yeah, I know. So that's a tricky one. I would probably count it as 5 technically. I think there's 5 pieces. I wouldn't say 4 is inaccurate though, because now things have gotten so confusing. When I think just have my license so long as 5-piece, I automatically think there's an extra feature in there. There's like a jacuzzi or something, you know what I mean? That's not in a normal washroom, right? 4-piece, I always think, oh, there's tub and shower. Not a lot of people are thinking of a sink as pieces, but you're not incorrect. I can look up and see if there's a hard and fast rule, but I haven't heard that there's a hard and fast rule about that where we're getting in trouble for that. I haven't seen any complaints where they miscounted the sink. Do you know what I mean?
It's one good thing if you see when they say 5 pieces,
Mhm.
it's always a shower, toilet, jacuzzi, and 2 sinks.
That's what I'm saying. The regular thought process 5 would be that there's that added feature of a jacuzzi or something in there. So yeah, I don't know if they think it's wrong if you say 5 if there's 2 sinks, you know what I mean? Because I mean it is something to showcase, hidden or sink, double sink in the master bedroom, like, or in the primary bedroom, right? Yeah, but I'll find out if we could actually get into trouble for that. I'll double check for you. A family bonus room. So we talked about the family room. We don't just say, oh yeah, there's a big dining room there. It's a family room. Family room is something in addition to the dining room. Or sorry, the living room, right? So you have the dining room, living, kitchen. If there's an extra room in the back or something like that, then that's going to be considered your family room, the bonus room, right? And then the basement tier. Okay, so what are you going to put? You have to put exactly what it is. I find a lot of people just put full if they have some unfinished basement just to make it sound all fancy because they don't want to put unfinished, but partially finished, finished, whatever, separate entrance. You want to pick the ones that you find add more value to your listing. So even if your listing is unfinished and it's garbage and it's total crap in the basement, I would instead of picking unfinished, I would pick separate entrance. Maybe I could pick unfinished as well because it does allow you a couple, but I definitely want to pick separate entrance so people see value the income potential of having that separate entrance basement. Okay. And then fireplace stove, so if they know. Source, and most of the time we're dealing with gas, but if you're in an older property, you might be dealing with electric baseboard. If you're in a newer property, you might be dealing with some kind of solar power. You never know. So gas forced air is what we're dealing with 99% of the time. Just trying to get through this and get to the end. And then central air. So now I've X'd out everything. That's become a field that says I'm fully filled out for all the mandatory fields. Room and detail. Okay, room and detail. If you take listings off the measurements off the previous listing, it's a big no-no, okay? You can't just say, oh, the previous listing had that measurement. You either have to have a floor plan from the builder, right? Or you have to have your own measurements. Who, as an agent, carries a laser measure? Good. You should be measuring things up. So generally, if I want to check an old listing, now everyone says, well, if you check a couple of the rooms, should be okay. Most of the previous listings should be fine if those few are accurate. I still want to check it all. We still check the whole house just to be sure because we're liable for those measurements. So make sure that you carry this. It's a cheap, inexpensive tool you can carry with yourself. And I don't complain because I remember having to literally take a measuring tape and measure houses before. So really happy with the laser measure these days. I think there's even an app on the phone, but I don't know how accurate it is. Remember our client was showing us the other day? He was like, oh, look, it's on the phone now. And I was like, oh, okay. Oh, you could try that. Comments, remarks for clients. So here you're going to put your beautiful description, 4-bedroom, brick home, whatever. We can all become poets and write this, not a problem. ChatGPT is helping us a lot lately with descriptions when you feel like you're totally tired of hearing the same thing over and over again. My comment on this section is you are not allowed to put things that encourage people to only call you. So that's what I've seen complaints on, okay? So you cannot say, please call listing agent today. You can't put your information in there. You can't advertise in there. Anything that entices them to call anything other than their agent or, you know, anything that directs them to you. So big no-no for that section. Offer remarks. So it says here, seller direction. So only what the seller has directed you. That offers will be presented on May 14th and, you know, whatever offers anytime, whatever you're going to put here. Inclusions are fridge, stove, washer, dryer, things that are normally included that could be picked up and taken away, all the chattels. So you're going to itemize them all electrical light fixtures, all window coverings, you know, whatever, broad loom or laid. I always like that one though. Who's really going to rip up the carpet when they go? I'd like to hear a story of somebody who ripped up the carpet. Exclusion. Super important to put because if you drop an offer and you haven't put your exclusion in, tough luck. That heirloom chandelier from grandma is now gone. Your seller just lost it. You have to put it in the exclusions. What is it that they are keeping from their house that is expected, that anybody walking through reasonably would expect to stay, right? And you have to be really cautious to read these carefully. So I always include stuff that even the listing agent doesn't include. As a smart buyer agent, do it. You get stuff thrown in for the fun of it. So like, you know, I remember there's this really nice barbecue once. I wrote it in for my client who bought over in E10. And then the seller took a fit, said, I never said a barbecue would be in. Sorry, you signed it at the end of the day. Your listing agent should have checked it, right? So make sure you're putting in only what's included and making sure you exclude. I would say if my guy really likes his barbecue, I'm going to put his barbecue in here. A lot of people might assume you take your barbecue, but not everyone, right? Rental items under contract. Again, grab the information. It's really easy. I say, what's under contract? And a lot of clients go, I don't know, like maybe I think just my water heater. Then the next thing you realize their furnace and their AC is also a rental. Grab just a monthly bill off of them and look and see what's itemized on there. Is the furnace on there? You know, is the AC on there? Is the humidifier on there? Is whatever on there? And how much it is per month so you can put it in here. Under contract monthly costs, so any other thing that's under contract, so maybe somebody might have solar panels on the roof that they're have a monthly contract for. That's it. Good, obviously go to the new buyer, so they have to be aware of the costs. And then realtor only remarks. So here is where you put stuff that the public doesn't see when they go on realtor.ca. So whatever you want to say to them, lockbox, for, or, you know, for easy showings, you know, please attach Schedule B. An 801, don't let the cat out, you know, whatever you want to put realtor to realtor, you can put here because only other agents will see that. And then we're going to go on the last tab here that's lit up still. And we're going to put our information. So make sure you put your accurate phone number and email. You guys ever call the listing and the guys put the wrong number? The reason they make us fill this in every single time and not just keep it there forever and ever and ever because people's numbers change. So we're expected to enter it every time we put it in a listing to have our accurate phone number there. Make sure we're accessible. And at the bottom here, commission to co-op brokerage. So you want to put whatever you're offering. So 2.5% plus, whoops, HST. Okay. Oh, there we go. And then seller property information statement. Again, I'm not a fan of putting it with the listing. You'll never see me do it. I think it can get your client into a lot of trouble if they misrepresent something. Really great paper to take on your listing appointment with you though. So you remember to ask all the questions from your client. So what renovations have you done? When was the roof done last? Have you had any upgrade, this, that? What kind of plumbing? It asks you all the questions, reminds you how to talk to your client for that listing appointment so you're knowledgeable. But I never attach it and put it up on my listing, even if I get it. I never get it signed by them or anything like that. But I don't know if you guys can think of a really good reason why you would put it up there or anybody who would use it. Let me know, or if you regularly use it, I would like to hear the pros on that because I'm not a very big fan of it. Distribute to internet. So do you want this listing on the internet? Yes, I want most exposure. Display address on the internet. Distribute to DDF and IDX. So why do we distribute to DDF and IDX? Not only realtor.ca. So realtor.ca subscribes to DDF and IDX. Yeah, House Sigma is another one. So this is just something that you subscribe to. So if even if you have your own website, you could subscribe to this, and this just lets the feed from MLS go automatically to your website. So how does House Sigma and all these other websites, Remax, anybody's personal website, all of these ones, Zillow, all of those, Zolo, how do they all have the updated listings and what's live and ready? Because they subscribe to this, okay? And it automatically feeds to theirs. Now, why would you put no for this? So I had to put no because my client was really upset because she thought that Zillow was really underestimating her property value. She was pretty ticked off about it. And she was like, you know what? I don't appreciate you putting it on there. I said, oh no, it's not me. I said, we signed that we automatically subscribe to it. I said, let's just change that on your listing agreement and we'll click no. And then nobody gets it in the feed, right? It's only going to appear on MLS, right? And then permission to contact listing broker to advertise. So I'm going to say yes. I like other people reaching out to me. I just had someone ask me their opinion on this yesterday, and I said, it's up to you. It's a personal preference. If you guys want someone to advertise your listing, or if you don't want someone to, it's your personal view, right? But it's your listing, so you can choose. My opinion is, okay, so why do people not like it? Let's start with that. Some agents don't like it because maybe you're going out there in that neighborhood and you're making it look like it's your listing because you have it on your postcard and you're advertising it, right? Me, I don't care. If I have a listing, I want to sell it fast. I want it mass exposed. And the more people advertising, great. You're spending your dime and you're sending it out Canada Post. I'm not really offended by it. I'm not that, like, maybe if I was in a very high-end area, in a very niche area, I'm doing listings on Post Road where not a lot of agents get in there, right? And I really want to keep it to myself. Maybe I'd say no for advertising because I want it to only be my face and I don't want anybody chancing that. But for regular everyday listings, for sure, I don't mind people advertising. Showing requirements. So what are the showing requirements? Is your client going to open the door for them? Do they have a lockbox? Is there certain remarks that you want to look for to get the key at the listing brokerage? Whatever the case may be. Occupancy, again, super important to put the proper occupancy. I've seen people put owner and I walk in and it's a vacant property. And I'm kind of annoyed as, not to be sexist as a female agent, because I want to know if the property's vacant, right? If I'm meeting a stranger who's called me off of online and I'm going in, I want to know if that property's vacant or not, because I just want to know for my own safety, right? If it's a tenanted property, I want to know that I need to give 24 hours notice before I arrange with my client. Oh, 6 p.m. tomorrow, great. And then I go book it. I'm like, oh shoot, needs 24 hours notice. I want to know that ahead of time and say, oh, I see it's tenanted. Actually, do you want to book maybe later in the evening or the following day? I just want to be knowledgeable, right? Make sure you're putting the proper information, whether it is tenanted or vacant or whatever the case may be. There's a reason why this information is not public online. Because sometimes some people might see a vacant property and use it for nefarious reasons and call out a realtor to a loan to a property, right? So anyways, very important to say whether it's owner, tenant, vacant, various reasons for that, not only safety, but definitely a big one for me. I hate it when they don't put vacant and you walk in and it's vacant, right? And contact after expired. So we're going to encourage our clients, no, we'll still call. You guys know when I train you, I always tell you to contact the expired anyways, but always put no. So maybe it holds back some of the people who don't actually do it. And virtual tour. So we're going to put in our virtual tour in here. No branding in the virtual tour. Most of our photographers and media people who put together everything for us know that they're not going to brand it for us, but still you're not allowed to do it in case you're doing it on your own, like if you're creating it on your own with a lot of nice programs we have now, but make sure you don't do that. Okay. Photos. We're going to upload our photos. Please take professional photos. It's a very small cost, but I've seen people with blurry photos, dark photos. I was going to pull up some examples today, but I always run out of time. So go through the listings and you'll see just yourself as a realtor when you go on and see how it displays. Remember, I talked at the very beginning, it's your whole job to pull people in from online. Everything is, the first source is they go online. So if you want to pull people in for your listing, you have to make sure it showcases well. Use professional photos. And then finally, the attachment. Everybody should be attaching Schedule B from our office, whether it's a sale or a lease. If you don't have a copy of it and you're uploading yourself, ask for an updated copy, or at least let the front desk know I've loaded that listing. Can you please attach Schedule B? There's a lot of clauses in there that protect you, like, you're not responsible for the measurements, or you're not, for the retrofit status for the basement, different things like that you might forget that have actually saved people in their actual deal, but they had our Schedule B attached, so they were saved by it. So only something important there. Then once you X out all, I still have some answers. I didn't put in the comments and I didn't put in all of this stuff here. You can sit there and you can load the listing. Yeah,
You said last weekend was Schedule B.
you have to put Schedule B in. There's a lot of clauses in there that save you, right? And so we always have our standard office Schedule B that you attach to all your listings. So if you're loading your own listing, ask for a copy from the front desk or load it and call front desk and say, can you attach it to my listing? Okay. But you guys can also put, I meant to say here attachments, you can also put or plans, you know what I mean? Other kind of documents you have, disclosures, if you're related to the person, whatever the case may be here. Right? What is that? I was gonna say one more thing, and now it's my mind. It must have been a lie. There you go.
About where finish square feet is mandatory, so where we have to get that right before.
It's $5 on the Via warehouse, so it's a good question. Sometimes, yeah. So again, you go to your Geo warehouse. Geo warehouse is your go-to for everything. Okay, so you're gonna come here. I always pull the report because then I always save it because if I'm quoting the square foot, I definitely want to make sure that I have accurate information, right? So you can come here. I can't actually process it or I'm going to end up buying the report, but it's in here. There's a bunch of different things in here. You can find out if there's any charges or liens on the property, but that report's a little more expensive. It's like $35. Come on. Right? So here we go. We have all these different reports you can pay for. The one that you're looking for is this residential floor area report, $5. Yeah, I'll buy one for every single listing for sure.
I want I actually do with like that, like with the thing.
Yeah.
$200.
Oh, that's okay. At least you did your due diligence. But yeah, it's a $5 report you can find here. Okay. And you just check it out. And it's a PDF that you can save with your listing, forever yours, right? I believe all your orders stay in here. Where are we going here? I honestly never go back and look at it. Here, my orders. 101. Maybe they only stay for a short time. Anyways, save them. I thought they all stayed in here as a resource, but I know I pull them for every single listing. So like I have, a bunch sitting in my thing here, but save the PDF. You can always download the PDF report. Actually, let me open this one so you can see it since I have one in here. You can include profile information, no profile. I never include my profile information because it's just for informing people. And see, it says floor plan report, 17 Rose, City of Toronto, assessment roll number. Above grade is 2291. This is great because you can say with confidence in your description the accurate square feet, because you can prove I pulled it. I can say it's 2291, almost 3,000, right? A lot of people say almost 3,000 and it's 2,200, and it's not accurate to say that. So, all right. I thought I had one more thing to say, but I completely forgot. I was like, I should go over this, but we're running out of time. I don't want to keep you guys too long. We'll do it next time. Yeah. So maybe next time we're going to go over a little bit of what paperwork you need in order to load all of this and how to gather that information and mandatory fields. I also have a checklist I was going to go over with you guys when you're loading a listing. So we'll do that another time. All right. We have some guest speakers coming up. We have Centerpoint Condos coming on the 13th, and Realtor Quest next week. Okay, Realtor Quest, we're gonna go Thursday. A lot of people had voted for Wednesday. Then I was saying, oh, you know what, Pitbull's coming on the Thursday. Some of the girls changed their mind. So I think we're gonna go on Thursday, Thursday morning. So we'll get together and we'll do that. Whether you guys want to meet, I think here or Kennedy, either way. Like, I mean, this is closer to the a highway right here. Both are close, but this is a lot of space for us to meet. Maybe we'll have a little breakfast here before we go. I'll talk to VJ about that. Breakfast and bounce, Realtor Quest, right? Yeah. So I'll see you guys all next week for Realtor Quest. I'm just gonna let them go here real quick. Dash. All right. Bye, everyone. Have a good morning.
Thank you.
No problem. Bye-bye. Sign and leave? No. Why?